Hello, awesome Algebra 1 students. Welcome back. In this quick review video, we will be factoring trinomials with a leading coefficient using the slip and slide method. So the slip and slide method is one of three possible methods that you can use in this case. Again, this is a trinomial where the leading coefficient is not 1, there's actually a number there. The first step in slip and slide is to slip the leading coefficient down to that last term. Then you're working in this alternate universe with this different trinomial, so you'll factor it using P's and Q's. Then at the end, you'll slide that leading coefficient back under the last terms in each binomial and simplify. Again, these steps will make a lot more sense once we look at some worksheet practice problems right now. Okay, so in all of these examples, we are dealing with trinomials that have a leading coefficient. So normally, if it didn't have a leading coefficient, then this 2 wouldn't be here, and it would just be a squared plus 9a plus 10, and we could factor it using P's and Q's. But because that leading coefficient is there, we're going to use what's called the slip and slide method. So we take the leading coefficient and we're slipping it down. This is called the slip. Now, basically what you're doing there is you're multiplying 2 times 10 to create a new alternate universe, which is why I like to put it in quotation marks, trinomial. So this is no longer an equivalent trinomial. We're dealing in a different universe here. So our new trinomial becomes a squared plus 9a plus 20. Notice how, because I slipped that 2 down to the 10, the last term became 20. Now we're going to factor using P's and Q's. What two numbers have a sum of 9 and a product of 20? So what plus what is 9? That when I multiply those same two numbers together, I get 20. I do believe those two numbers are 4 and 5. So that means, again, in the alternate universe, because we changed the trinomial, we changed the trinomial, our first factored form will be a product of two binomials. A times A is how we get a squared. And then we bring in our P's and Q's. Positive 4 and positive 5 is how we end up with 20 and 9. Now, this is not your final answer because we did the slip. Now we have to do the slide. So you're going to take that leading coefficient and you're going to slide it back under each of the binomials, the last term in each of the binomials, and we're going to simplify. Now, if you can simplify the quotient, then you should. So for example, I can simplify 4 divided by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So my first binomial, notice I took the quotations away because now we're back to where we started. My first binomial is going to be a plus 2 because 4 divided by 2 is 2. However, I cannot simplify 5 halves. 5 divided by 2 is not a whole number. So instead, I can change this fraction to a whole number by multiplying both of these terms by 2. Or in other words, keep that sliding all the way out in front of a, and you end up with 2a plus 5. Let's do a quick check. 2a times a is 2a squared. 2 times 5 is 10. 2a times 2 is 4a, and a times 5 is 5a, and 4a and 5a gives you 9a. I know that was a really quick check. You can always check using the longer way if you need to, but that's the slip and slide method. Let's try it on another example. Again, trinomial, leading coefficient is greater than 1. So we're going to take 5, our leading coefficient, slide it down to the end. Or excuse me, slip it down to the end. So now we have 5 times 3. That was our slip. Now we're working in this alternate universe. So I'd like to put quotations in just to remind myself that I'm working with a totally different trinomial. My new trinomial is a squared plus 8a plus 15. Now we can factor with P's and Q's because I no longer have a leading coefficient. So what two numbers have a sum of 8 and a product of 15? So what plus what equals 8? That when I multiply them together, I get 15. And those two numbers are 5 and 3, or 3 and 5. So here we go. My first factored form, not my final answer, because remember, there's a slip and there's also a slide. My first terms are going to be a, again, because a times a is a squared. And my second terms will be my P's and Q's, positive 5 and positive 3. Now, second to last step, I'm going to slide that leading coefficient back underneath both of these terms. Again, that's the slide, because you have to undo the slip. So if I multiplied the last term by 5, I need to undo that by dividing and simplify. So can I simplify 5 divided by 5? Absolutely. 5 divided by 5 is just 1. Can I simplify 3 divided by 5? Nope. So we're going to continue to slide that 5 in front of the a, essentially multiplying both of these terms by 5, and you end up with 5a plus 3. Let's do a quick mental check. A times 5a is 5a squared. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times a is 3a, and 5a times 1 is 5a. 3a plus 5a is how you get 8a. All right, we'll do one last example. We'll skip number 29 here because that's similar to the other ones, and we'll go ahead and do number 30 because it has to do with some negatives. Just because it has negatives does not mean that it's any different. In fact, the steps that you're going to use are exactly the same. Okay, step 1, slip the leading coefficient down to the end. 3 times negative 6 is negative 18. So again, that's the slip. Now we're working in this alternate universe because we completely changed our trinomials. So now I have x squared minus 7x minus 18. Again, because the leading coefficient is 1, I can use p's and q's. What two numbers have a sum of negative 7 and a product of negative 18? So in other words, what plus what is negative 7? That if I were to multiply, I get negative 18. This one's a little bit tougher. What about negative 2 and 9? Negative 2 and 9. Negative 2 plus 9 is positive 7, so I'm close. Usually when that happens, oops, I undid too much. You just have to change the negative to the other sign. So instead of making 2 negative, I'm going to make 9 negative and see what happens. 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. 2 plus negative 9 is negative 7. Okay. So now, in my alternate universe, I'm factoring using p's and q's. So x times x is how you get x squared. Bring in my p and q. My p and q were positive 2 and negative 9. But remember, you're not done here because you did the slip. Now you have to do the slide. Slide that 3 underneath both of those terms and simplify. So this is our slide. Now we're going to end up with our final answer. So we're back in the regular universe. Can I simplify 2 divided by 3? Nope. So we're going to slide that 3 in front. 3x plus 2. And can I simplify 9 divided by 3? Yes. That would be x minus 3. Let's do a quick mental check to see how we did. 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times negative 3 is, 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. 3 and negative 3 is negative 9. 2 and 1 is 2. Negative 9 and 2 is negative 7. So we're good. All right, that ends this video. So again, for the slip and slide method, you first start by slipping the leading coefficient to the last term, in other words, multiplying it. You're in an alternate universe where you factor out using p's and q's. Then you slide that leading coefficient back underneath those second terms in each binomial and simplify. Remember, this is only one possible method for factoring a trinomial with a leading coefficient. Check out my other videos to find out how to use other methods.